Hello and welcome to another wonderful day. This is Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Well, this is the time when we take you through some stories around the globe. Beginning from Africa, as Putin promises a total support for African countries, saying Russia Foreign Minister Lavrov is the one who said that. Russian President Vladimir Putin promises Moscow's total support for Africa at a conference with African officials in Sochi in southwest Russia. Our country will continue to provide total support to our African friends in different sectors, Putin says that in a speech that was read out by Foreign Minister Lavrov. The conference taking place came after two Russian-African summits in 2019 and 2023. Now let's get to the United States, where a lot of follow-up is coming after Donald Trump was being elected. Trump is the U.S. elected president, and that will come with a huge climate change. As a matter of fact, Harjit Singh, Global Engagement Director for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative, said Donald Trump's victory in the United States presidential election would be a major setback for both climate negotiation and global cooperation. Speaking at the United Nations COP29 climate conference in Baku, Azerbaijan Singh warned that the absence of the United States is the biggest historic emitter and now the top fossil fuel producer, and that will significantly affect the talks. More stories still coming from United States as Trump completes swing state sweep by Arizona. He took over Arizona during the election. Donald Trump won the state of Arizona in the United States presidential election that was just conducted. This happened after 4 days of counting in the southwest state with a large Hispanic population. Trump had obtained its 11th electoral vote as he defeated Vice President Kamala Harris. Outgoing President Joe Biden scored a narrow but crucial victory in Arizona. That was in 2020, different from what has been happening before, and that condemned Trump to defeat after his first term in office. But right now, he has won it again. Moving away from there, still more stories from around the globe. European Union have vowed unwavering support for Ukraine after Trump's assumption of office. He has not assumed office yet. He's going to be assuming office in January. But then, in Kyiv, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell pledges unwavering support for Ukraine on the first visit by a top Brussels official after Donald Trump pulled win. The clear purpose of his visit is to stress the European Union's support for Ukraine. According to the statement, this support remains unwavering. Nothing is going to stop it. And the support is absolutely needed for you to continue defending yourself against Russia's aggression, says Joseph Borrell, who is set to leave office next month, and he's making this move. Let's go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return and we'll get connected to Dr. Victor all the way from United States as we look at some of the matters arising from the just concluded election in the United States. Those in the United States know how it's actually faring, especially people at the diaspora who are not really citizens of the United States. But a lot of things are coming to mind. Some persons are thinking the assumption of office by Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States of America might be spelling doom for some persons, and some other persons will be celebrating. But is that exactly what it's going to be? A lot of speculations in the air. But we will get to establish some facts and some perspective concerning the assumption of office of the president-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump, and that will be after this break. Welcome back to Diplomatic Perspective. Well, this is a special edition right here. I told you I'm going to be joined by someone from the United States of America to discuss the just concluded election. The atmosphere is still stirred up even though the election has been concluded. And joining me today all the way from USA is Dr. Victor Udo. He's going to be joining me via Zoom. So we'll be looking at the re-election of Donald Trump, its implication for the United States of America, its implication for Nigeria, Africa, and the whole world. What is going to be the implication? And of course, he's going to be adding his voice to the conversation. Good day. It's good to have you on the program, Dr. Udom.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you. Leadership, whether it is local, national, or global, is a function of structure and strategy and objectives. And so any president in the US comes in with objectives and strategies. And that's why they go around campaigning, talking to individuals, talking to organizations, talking to groups, and making sure they earn their votes. And for Americans, always typically about what is best for the interest of the country. And then also what is in the best interest of their economy, their military, or I should say our military and economic interest. And so whether it is Trump that is elected, or it could have been Pamela, who happened to be my alma mater graduate, Howard University, which we are very proud that one of us get to that point of being a vice president and also being a candidate. So if it was if it was Trump, they would first of all keep America first. And then they would think of what is the policy of their party platform. And so Trump won. And his most critical objective for the country is cultural war. It's culture. Because in their party, the Republican Party, and by the way, I'm an independent, so I vote for whoever my conscience points me to. And so in the Republican Party, the conservative movement, they felt like the country has gone too far from the United States culture. And so they tried to bring it back. Like his campaign said, make America great again. That is a loaded word. So that means America is not great in their perspective. And so they want to make America great again, which means, and some people probably also feel, that it's going to be more America-centric leadership, America-centric objective, America-centric strategies. That's not to say that if Kamala had won, it will be the same thing. But the approaches are different. And so from the world perspective, I think it has to be learning and negotiating, because Mr. Trump is a businessman, and negotiating what is in your interest, and also working with him to figure out what is in the interest of America. We talk about win-win in this situation. So people, different countries in different parts of the world would have the opportunity to negotiate with him because he's a businessman. That's how he thinks. And so when it comes to Nigeria, the big problem we have, I think, in Nigeria, whether it was Trump or another person, is Nigeria doesn't have the right structure. I'm not even going to talk about leadership. We claim to borrow our constitution and structure per se from America, but we don't have local, county, national government structures that would allow us to follow the American process. And so if we really want to benefit from the kind of leadership that America is providing, we got to look at the structure of our company, our organization, or our country. And that's why in my book I wrote
Doctor,
to
just
become
for a minute.
sustainable.
Hello, doctor. I want to draw your attention to something briefly. You talked about the fact that this administration, the administration of Donald Trump, is going to be American centric. That means it's going to be mostly centered on Americans. Now, what's the fate of the Nigerians who are in the United States? Not just Nigerians, but all the people who are in United States.
I don't think there's anything to worry about. But if you are in the United States illegally from any part of the world, that's something to be worried about, because they claim there are 10 million illegal people who have come into America illegally, and some of them come with crimes. And so they're going to try and deport those people. All right. So if a Nigerian came here illegally, a Nigerian commit a crime here, like any person from any other country, they're going to make a way to send them back to their countries.
Let's look at the policies of America right now. Talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is coming on the seat for the second time. Okay, this is re-election for him. What would you have to say about his campaign promises? Because a lot of people are looking at the fact that his emergence may be the end to some of the wars that we have in some countries of the world at the moment. Talk about the Ukraine-Russia war, then you talk about the crisis at the Middle East. What would you have to say about that?
War right away when it comes in. And whether anybody believes it or not, American leadership in the world is irreversible, irrevocable, at least in the foreseeable future. And so he's going to try and use negotiations. It might not be a very presidential in some areas, but being a businessman, he's going to try to negotiate people out of war. He's probably going to make sure that Israel wins the war. He's probably going to make sure that the war in Ukraine stops. That's the kind of leadership we're probably going to see from Trump. But he's going to do it through negotiation and diplomacy in a way. But he's not going to negotiate from the position of weakness. Businessmen, we try to negotiate from the position of strength.
If I heard you well, you talked about the fact that he may want to try as much as possible to make sure Israel wins the war. Don't you think, as a world power or economic power, the United States of America is, don't you think that is biased and unfair and against the international law? As in, if you look at it critically, some people will feel he is siding the Israelites, and that may, at the end of the day, resort to what we call a religious war, as the case may be. What do you think about that?
Like I say, the president of the country does what the people want, especially the Americans. So if the Americans have voted for him and for his party the way they did, that means it's in American interest for him to protect Israel. And I think that's the argument. So I don't think it's a religious war. It's alignment war. You know, America and Israel have always been together. So there's no way America is going to go against the interests of Israel. You know, maybe if it was the Democratic Party, Kamala, that won, it probably would have been different. But this is what Trump feels he's got the mandate to do.
Oh, okay, let's come back to Nigeria right now. As a matter of fact, you are a Nigerian, even though you are based in the United States of America. Let's look at your thought on the sustainable development goal right now in Nigeria. What do you think about it? What's your thought about the implementation?
Well, I would really encourage your audience and your viewers, though I'm not promoting my book per se. I've written a book on that. Equitable Sustainable Development in Nigeria is through the path of proper structure and proper leadership. Leadership at all levels. Leadership at the national level, leadership at the state level, and leadership at the local government level. So the 17 goals, I don't think he would just emerge from nowhere. It has to emerge from the proper structure, and it has to be guided by the proper leadership. So whether you are talking about hunger, whether you are talking about poverty alleviation, it was about leadership. And in a corrupt system, it's difficult for you to get the right kinds of results. Because in a corrupt system, people are always thinking about their own pockets. And so, yes, there are some goals we might have moved a needle, but if you don't have the right structure, the right leadership at all levels of governance in Nigeria, we're not going to be able to have sustainable development.
Then let's talk about this a little bit. It's of a concern to me when you talk about the success of that election beginning from what happened during the debate when Joe Biden stepped down and brought in Kamala Harris. Let's look at it from this perspective. How would you juxtapose the Nigerian system of election and that of the United States of America? I'm just trying to say, are there lessons to learn?
I wouldn't juxtapose because there is no comparison whatsoever. There was no individual writing of the result. The result was based on what the people, the Americans, said, which is what both Trump and Kamala, even though she lost, conceded and said the process was fine. So it's a matter of structure and process. We can't have a system where governors in the state just announce elections for local government, and if you look at it, every party in any state in Nigeria, all of their local government chairmen will win completely. In Rivers State, for instance, the governor actually moves his people into another party, and they win all or most of the seats. So the structure is weak. If you ask me the way forward, my thinking is, when I talk about restructuring, will be a system whereby key positions are elected. Judiciary are elected in the US. Some of the commissioners like Treasury and Accountant General, Treasury will be Commissioner of Finance in Nigeria Palace. They are all elected. And when you go to the local, we call it county. When you go down to the county level, the election is properly managed by the state and by the counties. In Nigeria, in the national level, you just have one entity, INEC, announcing whatever. And once you announce the result, and you tell people to go to court. In the American system, you can go to court. We remember the case of Al Gore and George Bush. Bush went to court, but at the end, they lost time. Not individual opinion and power and money. So if you want to make a difference in Nigeria, we gotta take out the money thing and give power back to the people. Let the people select who they want. And at that point, it doesn't matter. Like in America, it doesn't matter who won. That's the will of the people. So we gotta find out a way to ensure that the will of the people stands in Nigeria. And if we really want to get something from Trump have already described Africa, and some of us might not be happy with the words he used. Maybe the word is terrible, but we can't deny the fact that corruption is the biggest problem we have. And so if we don't deal with corruption, we shouldn't even talk about comparing ourselves with America and then talk about sustainable development.
Good to know. All right, let me ask you this, because this is very important, not just for you, but for everyone at the diaspora, especially people living in the United States of America. What's your assessment of Nigeria-US relation? The relationship that exists between Nigeria and the United States?
Under Trump? You mean under the Trump administration or in general?
In general, and what's going to be happening January when Trump comes into office? You look at it from the general perspective, then you just forecast into the future probably what you are expecting, okay, as soon as Trump get into office by January.
Yeah, in general, I mean, when I was growing up, there was Russia, and there was then Soviet Union also, and there was the US. And so, depending on what your personal interest is, as a country or as an individual, you align with one of them. I think right now Nigeria is non-aligned. If we get help from China, we would take. If we get help from the US, we would take. If we get help from Russia or even Israel, we would take. And so Nigeria is a very interesting situation because you have the Muslims who have their own values, you have the Christians who have their own values. And so when you live at the national level, you have to find a balance. And so once you have a balance as the leader of a country, again, as I say, going forward, Trump is a businessman. You have to find a way to identify what is in it for your country, and then you figure out the strategy. I started by talking about strategy and objective. You figure out the strategy to deal with the current president. And we know that presidencies in America does not last forever. If you are not good enough in the first 4 years, they won't vote for you. If you are good enough for another 4 years, they give you 8 years. And if you have leaders in Nigeria that can align with the strategy of where they are going and what is in it for us and what is in it for them. In my own case, I'm both sides, I'm them and us. That will help us to gain what we want from America. And America also would like to gain what they want from Nigeria. That's what a win-win diplomatic relationship stands for.
Doctor, this is going to be the size of the conversation right now. On a final note, before I let you go, what would you have to say to Nigerians who are, by all means, trying to migrate to the United States and other parts of the world? I mean, some are doing it legally, some are doing it illegally. So what would you have to say to Nigerians in general?
There is the issue of brethren, and there is also the issue of competency exploitation. I think there are both two challenges. If it was good in Nigeria, people wouldn't want to leave, and especially the most competent and professional people like doctors, nurses, engineers. The people will have to, in a free environment, free society, free global entity, people would want to go to where they think it's going to be better for them. But you got to do it legally, especially coming to the US. When I came to the US some years ago, I came as a student, and I stayed as a student. I didn't break the law. And today, by God's grace, I'm comfortably an American Nigerian or Nigerian American. And so if you follow the laws of where you are going, wherever you want to use the local parlance, Japato, you have to follow the laws. And when you follow the laws, you'll be okay if you have something to give to another country, and hopefully be able to repatriate some dollars or euros or the Japan money or the Chinese money.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. Thank you for adding your voice to the conversation on Diplomatic Perspective today. It's been one-on-one with Dr. Victor Udoh. And this is going to be the size of the conversation. This is a conversation, and it's tilted towards what people should be expecting around the world when Donald Trump assumes office. This is his re-election as the 47th president of the United States of America. I'll come on your way again for another edition of Diplomatic Perspective. Thanks for keeping a date with us. Bye-bye for now.